I probably should have, but I can do it later. It's kind of old news at this point, anyway. Like, it's more. It it's proper management and business decisions that, like, Blizzard can do the right thing. There is no right answer solution necessarily, but you have these guys, these people that have been working on these add-ons for 10 plus years, okay? And some of them, I think, are basically this is the only thing they do as a side project kind of thing. Um, well, the question becomes is these people have been doing these add-ons to implement into the game. Like, for instance, this right here, these raid frames right here of the party. This right here, this is customizable completely. You can't do that in default WoW UI stuff, okay? What they're going to do is they're going to start implementing this kind of stuff, this customization part of it, into the default WoW UI. So what they're doing is, so you have these people that have been making these custom UIs, that have been coding it and keeping it up to date, keeping the code up to date for the WoW community for a decade or so. The issue becomes when they're either or Blizzard is either going to, they have a choice as a management team. They can hire these people on as a direct hire, okay, and they can pay them a wage to do what they already do. This is the only thing is right now. So like they would be a Blizzard employee basically. There's that. The other thing is they pay them, like, they implemented the game, but they hire them as consultants, assuming they're for hire, assuming they agree to terms and whatever, and they'll do their thing. They will express all their knowledge and their, everything into the add-on, to make it a default setting. So the thing is I don't know what the community see, because they're taking donations. The only payment that these add-on people are getting is from donations. Okay. I don't know what the reasonable number is that one of these add-on creators make, because there's millions of people that probably, if you give like $5, and if 10,000 people give $5, you know what I mean? You start talking, how many millions of people play this game. So you're talking about a rather large number. The thing is it even profitable for them to do something like that? Like, as an add-on developer, like, are you actually losing money? That's the issue here. Is Blizzard's going to have to come up with a number to satisfy these people that are making probably pretty good money. But at the same time, they're practically Blizzard employees anyway, but they just don't have the title, they don't have the employment status. So it's kind of a management thing. It's also kind of what these people are worth, and is Blizzard willing to like pay them what they're worth? The bad thing about this is if like, because why would the add-on person even help these people if they're not going to get paid the same amount? Like, and why would they even like? Because if they're going to get like if their job's going to get cut anyway, you know, like they're going to implement into the game or limit the access of it. It's like there's two possible scenarios. One, they'll comply and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I would love to be a Blizzard employee, blah blah blah," you know. And then on the other hand, it's like I'm doing well. I don't have, you know, they don't have to worry about Blizzard as a quote unquote, you know, managerial type of role in their life. That they just do this for the community and they enjoy it. Well, that's the kind of point they're making is Blizzard technically does not have to hire these people, okay? Like there's nothing. And could they get around it? Yes, they could. But you're talking about an add-on like this one right here, Details, which used to be Recount and then got rebranded because I think somebody took it over or something. They did something else. So like this is just a log. Like this just reads logs all day. The thing about this is if you just give it to a bunch of devs and software engineers to just recreate, they're going to make a whole lot of mistakes that this original creator made, okay? And so it's probably going to save money in the long run to just hire this person at minimum as a consultant for X amount of hours or, you know, half a year or something like that until they get the project done. But the thing it still becomes is so implement these features. Yes, and they're see, this is where they did something really really bad when it comes to management and when it comes to pushing out, because typically if you really want to look at what add-ons are, it's an extension of the game, okay? It's an extension of the game that should have been a part of the game from day one, but they didn't put it in there for one reason or another. Probably mostly bandwidth, I'm guessing, and just overall pings to the servers, okay? Because, you know, 20 years ago, we were dealing with, of course, technology. We have almost unlimited bandwidth at this point. I'm not saying unlimited, but, you know, we're 100 times better. Basically, we're throwing gigabytes around like in seconds, and you know, and that was just not possible 20 years ago, for the obvious reasons. And so we're concerned, like, so it's like you don't. These people have put so much work in this, and they know this program so well that you don't want to, like, you can't make the argument of these people aren't qualified for this position kind of thing. Like, but what you can do is say, okay, well, with the staff we currently have, you know, you have to talk about workloads too. Like these people are going to go work 8 hours a day kind of thing on this, like. Or there's going to be somebody in a cubicle working eight hours a day on this stuff, and they've never touched it before. You know, would you rather just have the leap and get kind of the knowledge and kind of how everything works, you know, on the back end and have that consultant, or would you rather struggle through it the same way this guy probably had to? And just pump out whatever you pump out, you know. But there's a problem with that. Like there's an issue with that because the user base is used to something almost perfect that works all the time, okay? And what Blizzard tried to do, or what Blizzard did with another pullout, or another thing they did, um, they kind of gave something that didn't have a lot of customizability. It was just a kind of a generic kind of coding out there, and it worked, and it was fine. But the player base wants something more. They want something more customizable. They want something that I can move across the screen, put wherever I want. Like, if I want my damage meter up here, if I want it here, if I want it here, it doesn't matter where I want it. I want it there. It can go there. Like, they want it to kind of work in the same basic function that it does now. Like, because we've used these add-ons for 20 years, whether they are meant to be in the game or not, like, we've been playing World of Warcraft for the last 20 years, and our World of Warcraft experience is based upon that, okay? And we have to admit that. But also, Blizzard management has to, like, admit that, you know? They have to admit that this is just a unexpected part of the game that has been there for a very long time, and this is the poor management part that I was talking about earlier, that they did something very poorly, okay? And that is back 15 years ago or so, right around, you started hearing it about Wrath of the Lich King. This is well before, like, in Plus, but when Heroics came out, and when heroic level content came out of raids, and for raids and, like, in dungeons and stuff like that, then people started relying on these add-ons even more, basically. And as soon as they started doing this, well, this idea had popped up before, and this idea was exactly what they're trying to do, or trying to push out today. And that being, they're trying to improve the default UI of the game into what these add-ons do, because that was the whole thing. Like, well, you're gonna, like, people were complaining about add-ons to rule the game, and that there should be a standard UI used to keep everything fair. Because right now it's fair, but it's open-ended fair. They want something more standardized, basically. They want a standardized UI to make it a level playing field, so I don't have to have a cash bankroll underneath me to pay people $250K a year, you know, how many people that might be, you know, to make personalized weak auras on demand during Race to War First. That is the argument, is right now, to be competitive on a high level, you have to be able to do that. That is just not feasible for 99.99999% of the WoW population. It just isn't. And you could say, oh, well, they could do it for free. They could, but it's just not feasible. It's just not feasible. And to make it feasible, what you would have to do is make it. You're either going to eliminate weak auras in general, just straight across the board, which is actually not a horrible idea, or to at least in some regard, just limit it. So and once we limit it, then we can start having conversations that are like real conversations. But the big one here is the business end of it, like, and they
I need a target.
They made a mistake, like I said, 15 years ago, because they were starting to go this way. They were starting to go this way, and I think what they did is they might have thrown offers out to these people, and I don't know if they were rejected. I don't know if that's what this happened. I'm sure a lot of people have come and gone, and maybe even sold, the rights to an add-on or anything. I don't know if there's anything like that on the behind the scenes. I don't know. I don't know all the red tape basically, and the hoops that somebody would have to jump through for. If I don't know if it's an add-on for this game is considered proprietary. You know what I mean? And so this is Blizzard kind of trying to make that right, I guess. I'm not sure if it's even a wrong to right, really. But it's them finally coming to the conclusion that we need to do this when it should have happened 15 years ago. And maybe some of it did. Maybe some of that stuff started getting worked in. Like there's a lot of things about the game in general that has changed. About the way we receive information, like the way numbers even pop up on our screen all the time. That used to be an add-on to where all your damage meter stuff just do that, and you can actually get another. You can just get another add-on to do it too, and you can still do the add-on today and replace the generic. Because used to in World of Warcraft, I'm pretty sure the number has never popped up. That it was just fireball, and you saw the fireball splash, and you saw the health pool go down, but you actually didn't see the number behind it, which is okay, because in a real life, it kind of mimics real life, you don't see a health bar above people, so and so. So we get to that. We get to like conclusions like that, and that's kind of the cool thing about World of Warcraft and shit. And so on one end, I'm like, okay, well, this has been a business decision that has been put off for the last 2 decades, ish. It's been a little less than 2 decades. I'll say 15 years. And any company that puts off such a expenditure, that means they see it as an expenditure and they don't see it as revenue earning, basically. So they'll do, and anything like that in business, you will see a company complain, moan, gripe, anything that is not a revenue earning service in their company is looked down upon, like this should not exist kind of thing. But in reality it must exist kind of thing. Like a cost of doing business kind of thing. Well, this is kind of that. But we're talking about quality of life things within the game. The other thing is so that was their first mistake. I blame their leadership 15 years ago. That you had this idea, you could have done this now, and if you're going to complain about it costing more now than it would have 15 years ago, which inevitably it would have, for one reason or another, in the end, they chose not to go that direction, and they chose not to hire these people, or they did hire some, and not all of them. I mean, they couldn't make a deal, whether it be this way or this way, for one reason or the next. And so we're at this stage where they're kind of doing this, but they don't know. They probably don't know all the ins and outs on it, or they don't know where to start, or they don't know what to pay. So even if they're willing to pay up the ante now, they're either complaining that it costs too much now, just like they were before, and they're going to put out some half-assed product that doesn't do the exact same thing that this does. Okay? That's the issue. That is the issue. Is that the add-on created by the public, like, or the player base, is better than the add-on that would be put in and established in the default UI for whatever reason. I'm assuming that is a game reason. It might be a technical reason, but if the problem you have is the players seen um, have seen what perfection is, kind of thing, and they they've seen this now. Okay, they've gotten a taste of it, and this is kind of where they've like dropped the ball, is because they could have um, they could have ended this 15 years ago, but they chose not to. Okay, and because they chose not to end this, the player base now the established player base today, which is probably different than 15 years ago, now have seen the perfection of what these independent creators have done for the game, and they're used to a certain standard of add-ons and customizability and all these things that are all inclusive in this. What you have done is you've created 15 years for the player base to expect something that you don't necessarily want to deliver on, or you want to stepwise fashion that out, and you want to time gate that stuff out for two reasons. One, it's a coding nightmare. Two, these add-ons are up to date all the time, every day. Like, there's not, there are rarely a major add-on that is not up to date for the first day or two. Okay, maybe the first day, and then there's an update, and then it works. Is Blizzard ready to commit to that level of service to the player base? And are they willing, because at some point, like, these add-ons come out with updates all the time. And I think they're also looking at that as like, okay, well, we have to then provide this service on top of the base game, which was the whole reason they shied away from it 15 years ago. They didn't want to manage it. So that's why I'm saying it's a management problem. Yes, you're correct. You're correct that they would have source code, and they would have real numbers coming in, and it's not that these add-ons aren't getting close to real numbers. They are, but I'm sure there's some slight difference. I think that's also scared. I think Blizzard's also scared of that, and they've always been scared of that, to give the actual numbers, the actual stat weights that are put into these distributions to pump out X amount of damage or whatever, or healing, or even stat weights for just like gear dependency, things like that. But what they've done with that is they've just changed stat weights and scalars and the way they scale, and what you do is you just add variance on top of that, and maybe a little bit of marginal distributions. So once you do that, things that's how you do it. You put some randomness into the distribution, and what it does is it levels out the curve a little bit. So, and by say level me out the curve, it doesn't necessarily, it takes it from a linear to a slope of some sort, some kind of curve, which is what you want. So, and then you want that curve to be representative of whatever stats you're going to put into it with the stat weights and stuff like that. And you could go Excel sheets for days on that stuff. Like, it would actually be really interesting to see some of it, which you can tell in layman's terms, you can kind of see it play out. Like, not so much in Classic. Classic is really that linear kind of model, with few little elements on there. But retail, I'm mostly talking about retail. Retail is the big winner. It's the big changer in all of this. So, but they're gonna have they have some big decisions to put over. So, okay. Oh yeah, I mean, I could just clip what I just said because that's how it is, you know. The business, like, the thing is, it's a business decision at the end of the day here, and the question is do you want to keep these people on as consultants? Because who knows, and for the other part of it is some of these people might even live in a different country, so, and might not even, like, they might not even be American. So, you know, you're gonna have to go through all that. So there's, you know, which I don't think is a huge ordeal, but possibly is, you know, given, you know, what it is. So, you know, there might be some, you know, you're talking about business here. Yeah, basically. Um, uh, and so there's that, you know, there's some demographic things and just things that are, you know, not business friendly. However, but see, the looming fact remains still, okay, that for 15 years Blizzard has known about this and has not pushed the issue. Now the issue 15 years ago was that the add-on creators had proprietary rights over their add-on, and they're threatening lawsuit because they were making so much money. If you can imagine 7 million people logging into this game a day and using the same add-on, how pissed off they would be if they took an add-on that has been core. This add-on right here has been, or those similar like it, has been core to the WoW, competitive WoW experience for over 15 years. Okay? Yet, there is nothing in the default UI that gives me any semblance of such capability and such information grabbing capability. Okay. Nothing. Blizzard has done nothing to implement that. Okay. That is the one assuring thing of taking 7 years off of this game and coming back that I was hoping they had made progress on. And I came back and it was the same way. And I go, 7-10 years later, I'm like, we were talking about this a decade ago, and it's still there. It's still looming. It's still just hanging over their head. And to some degree, that's okay. It's okay to choose not to fix these problems necessarily, and allow the creators of the game and the public and the players that are passionate about it to fix these problems. The problem is when an add-on becomes so standardized into the gameplay itself that the content creators actually start adjusting the way they design content to work not only with these add-ons, but against them, saying that they're going to have this information, they're going to know this, so we have to do something. Hence, private wars came out as a combativeness effect to try to hide the information through the combat log. And then what the player base do? Well, you just hit a macro at a certain time and it skips. Instead of hidden combat log, it pulls that data into the combat log, and then you can pull the data because you pinged for it specifically. And so you come into a thing to where we're limited by the way computers work and the way coding works and things like that. So even if you can hide it, you can create a manual override within the game to see it. Now, you have to look at it two ways here. Should those type of macros be illegal? And if they're ever caught using them, should those people just get the ban hammer? This is a good question. If they know it to be cheating, but the thing is do you think the high ranking guilds care? Do you think they'll even know? Or will they send a lonely, level 1 character into the raid and pull the balls? Just to do this macro, to check it out, to rip the data off and just have that, because you can ban that level 1 account. No one cares. So there's ways around this, and a lot of it's dumb. But when you start thinking about things like that, it's starting to work away around the integrity of the game, but also having a crew of having 3 or 4 coders there at the beck and call to make weak auras, like specific weak auras tailored to people's UI on a dime, and when it's necessary. It's not just necessary, it's these things are right. And so these things are like destructive to the integrity of the game. That is the problem. Now, they used to be awe-inspiring. Oh, I can make a weak orb for that. That's so cool. I can juggle this information. And so the game became, no longer can I hit the buttons in the right order. Not only can I organize people in the correct order to do a certain task, but now I have all the information I need to make you're kind of a play caller. And that's what we see. That's what we see Liquid and Max doing. We have the 21st man, sitting there and just calling it out. You need to do this. You need to do this. Looking at all, and the thing is they've even taken it further to use an entire data center. It's not a data center, but all the, they're on LAN. They're all there. They can all screen share, okay, because of just the technology, and they can all screen share. They can do it locally. They don't even have to use the internet, okay, for this. This is a local thing. It would never be detectable by anything. So does that not scream unfair advantage? To pump in how much real money, assets, and resources into being first? Now, and this goes with all the competing teams, but doesn't that just scream a lack of integrity? And now, granted, the Race of World First has never been officially sponsored or sanctioned by Blizzard. They've never taken a official, we're doing the race and stuff like this. But the reason why they can't do such a thing, which I think would be awesome, is because they don't have a default UI. They don't have that. And people want that. There's a sect of people that want that. There's a sect of people that want to watch that content. But the customizability of add-ons limits that, because you can literally put any information that you can grab off of a ping to the servers in the combat log on your screen. And even they try to fix it, and you get a macro now to still funnel that information through, just because the way the WoW code works. And it's too much. It's too much. And like I said, you kick the can down the road 15 years, and this is what you get, And so it's just one of those things. It's still there. So and this is the thing, is when management makes these decisions, I don't know if they, obviously they were trying to create new content. There's going to be a certain level of it, not a certain level, a certain chain of decision making, okay, that resulted from this particular decision, okay, that had led up to today, when people are coming back to the game now 10 years, 15 years later, and they're getting the same experience. Now, obviously, that's a good thing for Classic, okay? Obviously, when you go back to Wrath of the Lich King and things like that, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that I can still have an add-on for that stuff. It really is. It's really cool that I can experience that. So what this really signifies to me as a solution is that there needs... we talk about... I think we need to, as a solution here, we need to think about this as like steroids in sports. Add-ons are steroids in sports. Esports. Okay? That's what add-ons are. Add-on is a steroid in esport. Okay? It makes you bigger, stronger, faster, tougher. All this stuff. Okay? All of it. Okay? Makes you just a bigger beast of a human being. Okay? So you have the guy on steroids. You have the guy that is on the normal. He's just doing normal stuff. Okay? Well, what do? You can do one or two things. Well, because we're not in a physical sport here, we don't have to worry about physical performance necessarily. Now, if you want to talk about like focusing, pharmaceuticals and things like that, then sure, go for it. We can have that discussion as well here. Is should medications like that even be allowed, and how would you test for it? Like, people have been talking about this since the inception of competitive internet gaming, things like that, is that they get a undue advantage because of this stuff. So this is kind of that is a side discussion possibly you can have with, leave down in the comments if you think that should be something they test for at the highest level. So, because in any other sport you get tested, why not here, kind of thing. There's still money, there's still money. Yeah, it's not sponsored or whatever, but, there's other video games that are sponsored by their big companies, okay? So we have to think of that as that. So the way I see this is you have steroid user, which is the add-ons, and you have non-steroid user, which is the normies. This is the question, is why can't we have two versions of WoW? Because we have the technology, okay? We obviously can code whatever we want. Why can't you have the people with add-ons and then the people without add-ons? And why can't they be two separate games? entirely. Just keep this WoW as the steroid ridden WoW at the highest thing. That's all about information grabbing, and just let it go and make the content super hard. The add-ons are required. Let those people build those add-ons. Let them spend $250,000 a year on software engineers to make their personal add-ons. Let them do that. Let them choose to do that, and also let those, let the race happen as normal. You don't even have to like sponsor it. You're already not sponsoring it, so we're not having any issues there. So the issue becomes the issue becomes, what do you do with the default UI? Do we just create a whole entire game for that? Well, that seems where it's going, because it seems like it is impossible, or it is not worth the time of Blizzard to balance WoW in its current state, okay, on roids, okay, with all the add-ons. So it seems like, because we constantly hear, well, we can't balance for both, and you're right. You can't balance for both. Okay? And we see this in Classic, that you can actually put a bunch of add-ons in Classic and it doesn't matter as much. Okay? It doesn't matter as much because you just need less information in Classic, because there's less going on. So, in my opinion, there needs to be two different games going on here. They need to be split, and they need to be well defined and different. And you need to have steroid WoW, add-on WoW, and then you need to have a more tame default UI standardized World of Warcraft. That is a mixture, and I don't know the exact kind of combination here, but I think we understand what's going on here. That gives you enough information to play the game at a competitive level without giving you everything, okay, and without giving you ultimate customability, okay, customizability. There has to be some balance there, because what you're getting into is the people that are willing to throw $250,000 on an entire software engineer that doesn't even play the game necessarily. Not that that matters, but they're just techs on the back end. Entire lands and things, and playing on lands should be a good thing. Getting together and playing physically with your friends, like if that's possible to do, I think that is one of the best things in the world that this game can offer. Okay. And just from a social aspect and a fun aspect of it. But, those things, and utilize comms, utilize call outs rather than just watching on your screen. Okay. And this kind of throws a ruffle in everybody's and everything else, because then you have to make it so that the standard UI, the non-roided WoW, you pretty much have that locked down to, this is what you get. This is it would be a very MOBA-esque experience, to where whatever you're trying to do, you're going to get this UI, you have these capabilities, and everyone will have that, and it will be a separate game completely, because we've already tried to do both. We've tried to do the add-ons with full customizability, and we've tried to implement just normal classic WoW, and they don't mix. They don't mix because the people that are willing to pay the real life money, that is just seems, outrageous to a lot of people, and to go that extra mile, which I'm glad they are. I think it's cool, and I'm glad they're able to do that and throw the funds, because it's entertaining and it's fun to watch. But we've noticed this now. You kicked the can down the road 15 years ago and said, "Oh, we'll look into it," and there was some integration there, but you didn't fix the problem, because then what you did was you integrated that, and then that became the bar, and then they do it, and then that became the bar, and then they did it, and then that became the bar, and you come into this, you just keep coming into this, um, you know, we're gonna one up you, we're gonna one up you, over and over again, kind of it's basically an arms race, and to where the add-on people are rushing to be able to macro or add on this, take it away for this one part of the game, and I don't know what that looks like. Now that's where the creative dev teams of Blizzard have to come forward, and they have to be like, okay, well, there's this. We already have three different versions of World of Warcraft. We have classic, not counting the hardcore and softcore. This classic, SOD, Season of Discovery, and you have and then retail, you know. And then I guess you can do a fourth wherever classic is, in somewhere between vanilla and current retail, you know. So we're there. So now that problem is a huge business decision as well. If you go that direction, one, you schism the game completely, but you've already done that. So, and then but or do we just get two raids in retail? Do we get one retail raid that is fully add-on compatible, and we're allowed to do that, and they're hard and they're tense? And then do we get another raid that is similar content, same lore, same storyline, same kind of place in general, but is default UI only? And maybe that is very, I don't see why that's would be a problem. Now, I don't know if it's okay to do that within the same game. Like, is it the same version of the game, like classic versus, or vanilla versus, like a vanilla raid versus a retail raid. There's a lot of differences in between what's happening there. But my point is, or do they have to be like separate instances within the game? Because personal UI has to do that, and you limit things like that. Or does a character have to be specifically for one or the other? It also makes like some fun things happen too, with character design, that maybe characters don't work the same. Maybe skill sets don't work the same, because we're unable to track all this data like we are now to min-max. That min-maxing isn't necessarily the be-all end-all anymore. It is, but you have to do it blind, basically, and which makes it really tough, because I don't know when to hit when my proc. Do I wait 2 seconds after my proc? So my other, you're starting to get into marginal differences where you want to hit this button when these two things go off, and I have these two cooldowns going on, or three things going on, and I have to choose whether to wait 1 second or hit it now, kind of thing. Is like, and the luck of the draw, and the difference between me parsing high and an average parser and a 99 is the fact that I know to wait the 2 seconds, where the other guy's hitting it now, and he's leaving 3% off the table. He's leaving it on the table, and I parse higher because I know that. And the thing is, you could be doing that accidentally. You could be doing that for a lot of reasons. You could be doing that for overall UI setup. But that's my solution to it. Again, that's another management and problem that has some bigger implications, because it's basically building an entire game. But the way I see games, MMOs coming into the future, they're going to be this mixture between classic. You're either going to have the classic with a default UI and something manageable by the players, or you're going to have something that only people that throw an ungodly amount of money, like real life money, to have these add-on producers, or even consult them to just make add-ons for their groups, like individually, and for the average player, for you as a player base to be kind of limited, and because what you're doing is you're putting a brick wall in front of the player base. You're saying that if you want to get to this level, the only way you can get this level, you can actually have the player skill to get there. You can be able to play your player just the best, but you don't have these add-ons, and you don't have these 4 people working under me, to at my beck and call create this, so I get this within minutes. Within 30 minutes, I get it. To where if I did that on my own, it would take me a day, 2 days, 3 days. Well, at that point, they've already killed the entire instance. So it's like, well, so you have 2 problems here. Is one, you have the time lapse, the amount of time it takes to clear the content, but it also the amount of time it actually takes to make these weak auras in a systematic way to be able to do this, other than having just random chaotic things which no average person could react to in the time of which allotted, especially week 1, and but even more so the people that are coming in week 6 or so, 6 or 8. So because they're using the same weak auras, they're using mostly the same stuff, and some of the players are the same people. They're just doing it over on it all, or running a different guild for whatever reason. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. That's where I see it. I see it being a business decision that was kicked down the road, that should have been taken care of a long time ago. That when people first started coming back to this game after taking a hiatus from doing whatever their real life threw at them and coming back, I see that this is going to be a hindrance, because I think people really wanted some kind of standardization to the UI. But now looking at it, to get this, you also want the same kind of feel that all these instances had. And I don't think you can never replace that. You can never inject a standard UI into it and get that same feeling. I just believe it's not possible. Like there's certain things, like, because if you kill a boss in real time and while it's in progression, you'll never be able to replace that memory. So it needs to be as similar to that memory with everything that I was tracking cooldown wise, setting up my weak auras and things like that. You'll get close, but you won't get there. But you'll get even closer if they have the same weak auras and things like that. That's what I'm saying. But by taking that away for a default UI, one, you might not even be able to do the content because you're unable to track the buffs and debuffs accordingly. Or even back then, it was just it was a godsend to understand who had a debuff and who didn't, and to dispel them at a proper time. Now it's how many global cooldowns of dispel can you heal through? Can you still heal through and still dispel the group before they die? That's Fire Rack. Okay, right there. That's the first phase of Fire Rack. First phase of Fire Rack is how many global cooldowns can you spare for dispel and still heal the raid? That's what it is. Without weak auras, without UIs and things like that, you're not getting there. You're not getting there. So, so and the other thing would be is, and I don't know how well this would be received, is time gate. You would time gate the ability to play more than one character, basically. You would say for the first 4 weeks of a standard UI or whatever, like, so the other thing is, but you rush to make as many characters and gear as many characters as possible to bring all of those characters, and you get one person that plays like 3 or 4 or level like 3 to 5 characters and bring them to raid. One will be your main, and you'll push, and everything goes RNG past that. What you do is, you time gate saying, okay, well, you can only play this one character, one class. Maybe you can switch once, during that whole period, you know, and for the next month, you were locked into playing one character, one class, no matter if that's your main, whatever you pick, and maybe you do that. That is what you get. Maybe we need to put more emphasis on item drops and bad luck versus, and that also it also stinks in the same sentence, but you can balance that out with N plus because you can run N plus as much as possible, but you can only run raid once, kind of thing. But if you're unable to keep running over and over again, it becomes more of a um, strategic thing versus just throwing all these characters at it. It's a complete opposite of today. And the thing is you can keep that with the steroid uses and the add-ons, and you can keep exactly how it is today without changing a thing. And you can still give that out, and it'll still be awesome to watch. However, for people that can't afford $250,000 worth of software engineers behind the scenes, for those people, you have this other that is a standardized alone that you don't put multiple characters in, that you get one for a month. You get to play through that, and assuming that's what it takes to get through the content, who knows. But you get one thing to go through the content and play on that one character, their one main. And and that, I think that would limit things as well. And they can be split up too. Like, you can come out with the steroid version, the add-on version first, and then a month later you can come out with the default UI. But I think it would be better to get the default UI one out first, and I think that would be a better race because it's fair. It's more fair. I mean, if you look at MOBAs and you look at um, the viewership of MOBAs, uh, that says it all. Okay, that says it all. Is like default UI is where it's at, for a lot of things. So when it comes to competitive, so, but those are my solutions. That's what I would like to see play in there. Do I have all the answers? No, but I think there's a general direction for Blizzard to take into consideration, um, and and I think that's the way MOBAs are going. I mean, we're seeing MOBAs get pushed back into the classic vanilla age of teamwork and communication, but without on-screen procs and things like that. And on-screen procs past a certain default UI is considered illegal and bannable, kind of thing. You need to bring back that bannable force needs to be kind of a thing again. Like, people, and I understand this is video game stuff, but I think for Blizzard in general and WoW, World of Warcraft, bringing back both, um, bring back both kind of a steroid add-on era, and because that's really what this is going to feel like. Okay, it's going to be a steroid add-on era of World of Warcraft, and then if you bring it back down to a standard UI, you're going to bring it back down. You're going to take the steroids out, and you're then going to see normalized numbers. Okay, you're just going to see all it is a scalar. That's all it is. This is scalars in the number scheme, and the fact that if you do add time errors to it, you're adding in human error. That's all you're doing. If you add to a timer, and can you react to this, and it's the same thing. It just is. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate the viewership. All of you, definitely subscribe to the channel if you like this video or more like it. There's other topics too that I'll discuss later, but that's all I'm going to do because this was pretty lengthy. It's close to home too, but I think the end of the day is Blizzard kicked this down the road 15 years ago, and now they're either going to do the same thing and they're going to take some of the add-ons and implement them slowly, and bring some of those people into the Blizzard employment underneath the employment umbrella, or they're just going to wipe out add-ons in general, which I think both should happen. And I think they need to be two distinctly separate games. Like I think the biggest thing is trying to get private auras. You try to fuse them together with unobtainable information, and what the devs actually said is, we'll just go out and pay somebody that knows just as much as you or more. So that's what they did. So if they're able to throw money at it and still get around these controls, you either give them something, to be able to do that, or you make something completely uniform, and you go with that. So that's where we're at, and it becomes an integrity of the game thing, just like steroids in regular sports. It's an integrity of the game, that you're withholding. Okay. And not only you talk about in regular sports, you're also talking about the physical well-being of the participants. So having both systems going at once, you at one hand, the uniform system will uphold all of that. Okay, and it will be a fair playing field across the board, and everyone knows that you're playing with the same rules, with the same information, with the same this, same that, everything. Okay, default UI. With this over here, anything goes. Anything goes. There's, for the most part, if you can dream it, you can do it. And and that's what you have over here with the add-ons and the things like this, and which is fine. But I think there's a place for both, and I think instead of necessarily concerning the money and the business decisions around, well, are we going to get these add-on people in here? Yes, you can, and you should pay them what they're worth, kind of thing, or they'll just say no. Or you can make two games, you can bring them on, and you can have that game and then make another complete game with a standard UI completely, and there we go. Problem fixed. So you give, and you can extend that to where you want. You can extend that UI into Mythic Plus. You can extend that into raids. You can extend that into leveling. Like, it can be its whole functional thing. You could create like a brand new character to be a part of that. Kind of like a tournament server kind of thing. You do it for you. We already do it for hardcore. Why not do this? This is your rating server. This is your standard UI rating server. Call it whatever you want. Why don't we have that? Okay. And then over here in regular World of Warcraft, you can have any add-on you want. It's free game. It's fair game. It doesn't matter. And then you can have over here. Now what sucks is somebody's gonna have to manage this on the back end. Somebody's gonna have tickets. Somebody's gonna have this. Somebody's gonna cheat the system. That's gonna happen anyway. So we have all this stuff, and we know what it is. But I know for a fact that this was an issue that was going to be fixed 15 years ago, and it wasn't. Why wasn't it? Because one of the cool things about leaving and come back and be like, oh, I hope they fixed all this stuff, and then it still exists. Now there was a lot that they fixed, and a lot of cool things happened to the game. But this is a problem. If you want to standardize and make this competitive on a fair level, and you want to be on the notoriety as other esport games, there's going to have to be this. Okay. Not only that, but the next video I'll do is basically talk about the implications of this system with the attention of the specific UI requirements and item requirements, and the managerial flaws and failures of the MDI tournament failures here. So and that'll be next video though. So anyway, Appreciate the time, the subscription, things like that, and we'll talk about that next. So